Wholeness, beautiful beings, welcome to Notes of Nara, and my name is Nadja Rashida. May this message find you well and whole. Have my handy dandy notebook here. And so yes, today's topic, why do we feel guilty when we finally choose ourselves? And this is a telltale sign when you're feeling this internal turmoil of guilt. This is usually a telltale sign of your own hypersensitivity. And what I mean by that is oftentimes, especially if you're extremely empathic towards, or you're worried or stressed or anxious about how people will perceive you, how will people treat you if you put yourself first. Usually if you're feeling guilty, it's almost kind of like, oh my gosh, like, I guess I'm self-centered now, self-absorbed and selfish. I should be giving up more of my time. I'm single, I am child-free, and I need to be available. I need to be easily accessible whenever, however, at whatever time for anybody and everybody. That is quite awful. That means you have very, very little boundaries, or very weak boundaries, or boundaries that are not yet clarified and not yet implemented to protect you, to guard the most sensitive, the most gentle parts of your being that really, like, people who want to get to that and gain access to that must earn. There are parts of our psyche, parts of our spirit, parts of our soul, parts of our personal persona, our inner world that we shouldn't just make accessible to anybody and everybody. Usually it's either through earning that, or that access, or a balanced, healthy, reciprocal connection that you have with someone. Meaning, if someone is being open and vulnerable and transparent with you, I find it's your duty to also match the energy, right? If you find that you're overgiving, oversharing, telling people your most deepest, darkest secrets, and they're not doing the same, it's almost like they're gathering information from you. They're gathering more intel from you. You need to hit pause. That's imbalanced and it's unhealthy. So yes, choosing yourself first can trigger this wound of, oh my gosh, I'm selfish. Oh my gosh, I'm selfish if I don't answer and respond to this text message within 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, 10 hours a day, 3 days a week. Oh no. Here's the thing. As someone who lives alone and someone who's very, very, what they call, there's the old term for it, a spinster, if you will. When you spend a lot of time by yourself, you have a lot of opportunities to work on yourself. And what I find is that you have to develop healthy practices in your life. I was just speaking to my younger brother. He's not a baby anymore, but my younger brother, he's in his mid-20s now, and early to mid-20s now. And, we're talking about a plethora of different things, specifically adulting. And he's entering into this season of his life where I told him, from like the age of 23, 24 to 30, they're critical and crucial years, because you have this opportunity to develop very powerful behaviors, okay, and in practices and routines that will allow you to get to discover yourself. Oftentimes you have older teens or people in their 20s to late 20s that will waste an incredible amount of time vegging out, or what they call now bed rot, where you just sit and you doom scroll on your device, or you just sleep all day, or you play video games all day. He told me about this term called gooners, where it's a very derogatory term, where, you have young men, young women just staying in a cubicle of a bedroom, and they just like completely get lost in the fantasy of the digital realm. And I'm putting that very nicely. Look it up if you're curious on what that is. It's pretty sad, depressing. But I told him, I was saying, like, this is your time to make you about you. Discovering your mindset, rediscovering your weaknesses. Because yes, I'm a firm believer in the cycles and seasons of life. There's nothing in existence that hasn't been done, hasn't been created, hasn't been visited already. And I say that with great confidence because a lot of the time when I found through consistent journaling, right, I kept journals for over 20 years of my life from age 10 to 30. I no longer have those cycles of journals anymore, but when I would reread certain seasons in my life in my youth, it's so crazy how the same lessons would come right around again. They would cycle right back. And when you are choosing to put yourself first, you allow yourself to finally integrate these repeat lessons. It's almost like you're about to graduate high school. You're about to graduate into a new cycle in life, but you need to pass that one lesson, that one class to get that degree in order to move on, right? In the school of life. And if you don't pass this one class, yeah, you can cross that stage, right? But you haven't received that diploma, and you're just going to keep going because that's life. Life doesn't stop for you just because you didn't learn the lesson. Life will keep going, but then this one lesson just makes its way right back around. And the lesson of guilt when it comes to learning and loving yourself and activating these boundaries, it's a very difficult one. We often will carry the burdens for others, of others. That is our identity. And I say that with lived experience. I have done this to myself, where I was most free when I look back into my early youth from the age of, throughout your childhood, you have this abundance. It's a mindset because you don't have access to money. You don't have access to, you don't understand the concept of money and materialism. But I'll say when I first started getting to the creative arts, I felt the most free. I felt the most liberated. And then something snapped. And, it was this obsession with being a doctor and healing. Right? It went hand in hand, being a creative person, but also being a healer. And I took that and ran with it. And it wasn't until I was 21, 22 years old, lost, not knowing what direction to take, financially illiterate, scared, just unsure. I spent all this money, took all these loans out to pursue a career in the arts. Didn't really need a degree to do that, but I went and did that anyway. I just was in a really vulnerable place. And I said, let me make service my purpose in life. Let me live out this archetype of the servant, the master servant. And that's what I've done, right? I would somehow, yes, even as an independent, child-free woman, I found myself working jobs where I'm serving others. And it's a real archetype, according to Caroline Myss, the servant, the indentured servant, right? And it's part of the sacred contract that I've had in this life and now I'm like, oh my God, it's that cycle, that big contract I've had for so long is finally coming to a close. Needless to say, I'm not saying I'm quitting teaching and, I'm like just saying F off to all people. I'm just saying, or I'm not going to show up for people when they need me. However, putting and placing myself first is a really big lesson. Oftentimes with the servant archetype, we will put ourselves last. You'll keep pushing when your body is exhausted. You'll keep, oh, let me get just one more task done for another hour, and your brain can't handle more screen time. You just keep pushing, and you get burnt out. You don't have anything left. You finally make a decision for yourself, and everyone's giving you the crazy side eye because it looks very selfish and you didn't put them first, and you didn't put enough effort into the friendship or the connection. And recently it was very interesting exchange, but I had an old friend of mine who reached out. It's been almost 3 months, and he's like, oh, he said it without saying it, but it's like, for me now, my relationships are a two-way street. It's no longer, it came off, we finally reconnected today, but it was like, what? Okay, I haven't reached out and haven't heard from you, you haven't heard from me, but I haven't heard from you either. It goes both ways. And I've always been the one to reach out first, to check in, to initiate, to do and I'm in this space in my life where I no longer need to do that. I am now creating stronger boundaries where I allow specific amount of time for specific things if it's not a priority of mine, and to not feel any guilt with that. This is for people, this message I find in my heart is for people that have really struggled with letting the reins go that don't belong to you. It's not your horse. It's not your ride. Get off. Yeah, it's very, very important. And is it risky? Yes. You might have people that are like, oh, how come she's not answering the call? How come she's not calling? What's going on? Am I not that important to her anymore, or to him anymore? And no, that's not always the case, but it says something when you really begin to put yourself first. Like, you begin to realize what the certain people or environments that have been draining you, and how you numb yourself out because you're not visiting with yourself. You're not checking in with yourself. You're checking in with everybody else. You're showing up for everybody else. I'm great at holding space for other people. I'm really great. You're going through a nervous breakdown, I'm there. I can hold space for you. You're going through a major transition, great. I can hold space for you. Going through separation, divorce, great. I can hold space for you. Going through a spiritual awakening, great. I can hold space for you. I've had people hold space for me, for sure. Rare and far in between. But I don't take those type of connections for granted at all. And what is holding space, right? You're when you're holding space, you are the centered and grounded one, while the other person is literally externally imploding. How does one externally implode? That's pretty funny. Maybe, they're having a breakdown, but you're the witness to the breakdown that no one else is witness to, because you have that capacity to hold the space for them to do that. You create a safe place for them to do that. And I have done that dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times for so many different people of all ages. And it's gotten to the point where I'm just like, I'm ready for something different. I'm ready for something new. And this transitional space that I am feels like a metamorphosis. This process cannot be rushed. I'm not blocking anybody. Because here's another thing. When it comes to rediscovering your self-worth and, and healing your self-esteem, what tends to happen is when you're not going deep enough, you'll cut off everybody. You'll block everybody. You'll pack up randomly and leave. And again, with cycles and seasons, if the lesson isn't learned, what happens? It comes right back round again, and it will keep doing that until you pass. Then you get that degree. And I'm using that as an example, of course. You get that degree, and there is a full sense of completion, of wholeness, of integration, and you can thus expand further. I like to use the word expansion and not ascending, because ascension and descension, to me, as above so below, as below so above, and within, without. And you have to be very careful in what you speak, because you'll go high, but to know the high, you must know the low. Every time, the higher you go, right, with consciousness, then the harder you'll fall deep into the ego death. So I like to stand firm and just expand my consciousness in all directions, and just be present with that, whatever I bump into. There's no need to climb up anywhere. There's no need to go down anywhere. It's about just being present, being here, being now, in the now. So yes, that is what I want to share with you. Guilt, the frequency of guilt is a burden. It is weight. And I would say what can neutralize the frequency of guilt is the joy you receive after putting yourself first. Ask yourself, wow, I did this, and this today. I didn't put so-and-so first. I didn't put this first. I didn't put that first before me. I did all these things for myself today. How did that make me feel? I felt fulfilled. I felt that there was completion. I felt that I allowed myself to see myself, to be with myself. And you use that experience as your compass, as your guide outside of that icky feeling of, oh my God, they must hate me. Listen, if you're not seeing or hearing people, if you only hear from a friend every 2 or 3 months or 6 months, don't sweat it. Don't sweat the silence. Don't. If you're used to seeing someone every single day, not every single day, but on the daily basis, give yourself space from that. And real awakened people, balanced people will understand that without sweating bullets. And you'll know if they are using you as an emotional crutch, by how they treat you during silence and post silence, when you're just going to your own little space, And it's not about playing psychological games with people at all. People will do that as well. They'll be it's almost like with love bombing. They'll love bomb you with all the tension, with all the focus, with all this energy, and then boom, it's cut off. You're like, what happened? You're on the roller coaster with them, and then the car of the roller coaster just flies off the rails, and you're just going into no man's land, flying in no direction. You're going to land too. It's going to be a crash landing. And that's scary and uncomfortable. So no, I'm not saying play this little game of disappear and then appear, disappear. No, just create your own private schedule of energy that you're allowing people to have, a window, and then close that damn window. Or a doorway. Okay, doors open. We can connect. And then there's a schedule. Shop's closed. No more energy for you. This energy's for me. And you don't have to tell people or explain to people this. You can if you want, but I would advise not to, because it becomes like a very weird, awkward conversation. It's a conversation that you must have with you to honor you. This is how we are re-honoring ourselves. Especially those that, are resonating with this message. The season of dishonoring ourselves is over. Learn the lesson, and it may take quite a few times, but awareness is key. And when you become aware of the lessons unlearned or not learned yet, then that's the first step. So may this message find you well, and Hope, thank you so much for tuning in. And please, by all means, let me know what you feel, how you feel, and what you think. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.